Welcome to part 2 of building your own retro style game. Now this tutorial adds player movement, falling objects, and collision detection. So let's make the project playable. Let's get started. Okay, in our last video we made this catch the items, and it's just a blank canvas with a piece of text and a red box. Now we're going to make this game interactive. We'll add a player, some movement controls, and even falling items. So let's jump back into our code. Now let's jump into our create function. And this is where we add game objects and we make game objects and things like that. Let's go ahead and delete all of this stuff. Now here we were just kind of testing how we wanted to do things. Okay, and I've added some new code. Let's explain it. Here we have the player as a blue rectangle. And we're saying this.player equals this.add rectangle, and we're drawing a rectangle at these XY coordinates. And as I explained last time, this is the X coordinate, this is the Y coordinate. It's going to be 50 pixels wide, 50 pixels tall, and this will be the color. And that's the rectangle function of phasor. Now the falling item is going to be a green rectangle. So this.item equals this.add.rectangle. And this one's going to be at 400, 50, and then it's also going to be 50 pixels wide, 50 pixels tall at this color. Now we need to enable physics. Now this is one of the really cool things about the phasor library is that you don't have to do all of the physics. So you do have to specify some configuration for things. You have to specify gravity and things like that. However, you don't have to come up with a lot of the algorithms and formulas and things like that for physics. You don't have to know a whole lot about physics, in fact, to use this library. And that's one of the cool things where phasor is starting to jump in and add a lot of value. And then we have player controls. So this.cursors equals this import keyboard, create cursor keys. Now all of this is in the create function. As we said, this is run one time when you start the game. Now in the game loop, in the update function, we need to add some code. Let's do that. Now let's take a look at this code so we can understand it better. It says move player left and move player right. If this cursor's left is down, so if the left arrow key is down, then it says this player dot x, that's our x coordinate, is equal to 5, right? But it's not exactly is equal to. What it's doing is it's negating the number. So whatever this.player.x is, let's say it's 500, it's going to say this.player.x is 500 minus 5. And then if you keep holding it down, the next time the update function runs, which will be within seconds, it's going to say this.player.x, which is 495, equals 490. Then the next time update is called, which could be in another couple of seconds, it's going to say this.player.x, which is 490, is now going to be 485. And it just keeps going. So as long as this update function is running, it's going to look at your left arrow key. And as long as that left arrow key is down, it's just going to keep reducing it by 5 pixels each way until you're all the way to the end. Right obviously works in the opposite direction. You can see here, this.player.x, you start out at 500. It's going to say, well, let's add 5. So now it's 505. And this game loop runs multiple times a minute. So this is a good way to kind of check to see if the left or right cursors are down. And if they're down, if you're pressing them, then it's going to move the player. So we'll save that. Now we need to add some collision logic, right? Because we have these two things. We can bring it up right now just to see what it looks like. And right now it's broken, it's blank, so we still have some more things to do. So we need to update our config to add some simple collision logic. Here's our config. Now this config variable can get huge. It's a good thing because it kind of configures and it tells phasor how you want your game set up. So here we have this set up, but we want to add in physics. We have our scene. Right in here, let's drop in physics. And so there are a few different physics models. The one that we're going to use is arcade. So here we're telling it to use arcade And then in the arcade mode, we're going to set our gravity. And our gravity in this case is 0. So that's going to be 9.6 meters a second or whatever gravity is set to. And it's going to try to mimic Earth's gravity whenever you play a game. Now, there's a few things that we need to add to our update function that's going to check to see if these boxes have collided. So we're going to have a set of boxes that are falling down from the sky at kind of a random rate. Then we're going to have a player that we can control to try to collide with those boxes. So let's go back to our update function. And we're here. And so far our update function is just controls, right? It's just controls. And you can see here, I've just loaded up the game. Right now, the green objects aren't falling, but the blue object is working whenever I press the left or right buttons. You see that? That's great. And all of that is being done right here by this, like 6 lines of code. So this is one of the cool things about phasers. Phaser really abstracts a ton of details for you so that you can just write it in and go. Now, in this update function, we need to add some more stuff, right? This is our game loop. Your update function will always be bigger than all of the other functions. I can tell you that right now. No matter how many assets you load, no matter how many objects you create, your update function is going to be the largest function because it's going to handle all of the logic for your game. And it's going to be within the game loop. So get used to this being very big. Okay, now I've dumped a bunch of code in here, but I'm not just going to dump it in and not explain it. So we have our move player left, move player right. Now we have here move falling item. And we can see again, we have this increment operator, right? So this .item.y, whatever its y coordinate is going to be, we're going to increment it by 3. So basically, whatever the falling item is, it's just going to go +3, +3, +3 all the way down. Now, we can reset the item position. So if this item.y is 600, that means we're at the edge of the screen, then it just sets it back to 50 to put it back at the top of the screen. This last one is a phaser function, and it basically says this item.x is phaser.math between 50 and 750. So what that's doing is it's doing a pseudo-random number between 50 and 750. So that way it can come down at random places, or pseudo-random places within the screen. Now here we check for overlap. And here we're saying if phaser, and it adds the geometry library, intersects rectangle to rectangle, right? And that's what we're using is a bunch of rectangles. This .player get bounds, this .item get bounds, and basically this get bounds function just says, is anyone else in my area? So we know that the player is 50 pixels by 50 pixels. And we know that this .item is 50 pixels by 50 pixels, and it knows what its pixels are because of the phaser library. And it says, when you call the getBounds function, it says, is anybody else in my pixels? Are there any other objects that share pixels with me? If that's the case, then we have a collision that evaluates true. And that means that this if function is true. And at that point, it's going to say, caught an item on our console log. It's going to set the item Y to 50. It's going to set the item X to some random number. So let's save this and try it out and see if it works. We'll refresh it. And now we see some green boxes falling at a pseudo random rate, right? It's just kind of somewhere. And hey, we're colliding and then it disappears. So we can look at the developer tools here and look at the console output. Now here you'll see audio context, Canvas 2D. We've got some info that we can ignore, but if those two collide, you can see caught an item at 71. And there's another one. There's another one. And so now at this point, we're able to move the player and catch items. Awesome. So that's what we wanted to do here in the second video, is we wanted to be able to control that player to generate random items and then check collision detection. So here in this video, you learned how to add player movement, falling items, and collision detection. So this game is pretty interactive, but we can make it better. And of course, that's what we're going to do in part 3, which is going to be the longest part. But we are going to make this game better. Amazing work! Your game is now interactive with moving players and falling objects. But there's more to do. So join me in part 3 as we add scoring, difficulty, and retro-inspired graphics.